Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What skills from my police experience transferred into business after my police career? And the realities of police work. This is a special episode of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast where I, John J. Wiley, am the guest on the Interstate podcast with Bridget Ann Stewart.
Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. In the Law Enforcement Talk radio show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk radio show.
What do you do when you're in your career that you dreamed of having for decades and you're in your career and that career ends? Is life over, or do you pick up and create a whole new life? We are going to jump into that today with a very special guest, John J. Wiley. Jay, thank you for being here on the Interstate.
It's my pleasure to be here with you, Bridget.
And I'm even going to go so far as to say that's actually happened to you a couple times. So you had a dream career as a police officer doing undercover narcotics work and just living that life and loving that. That abruptly changed. And then you became a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you absolutely loved being a DJ and you had a big following and you were in a great market. And that changed because that industry changed and for other reasons I'm not even sure about, right? And so many people would think, well, I guess life's over, right? But you did not. You leaned right into launching a podcast in 2017, leaning in on all the things you loved about your previous careers and combining them into being a radio figure. You're syndicated with a radio show and you have a thriving podcast. I believe your radio show is syndicated to, isn't it like, it's over 140 stations,
148
correct?
affiliate AM/FM stations across the United States. We broadcast weekly to about 48 million combined U.S. population. And we conservatively estimate the radio audience about 4 million people per week.
It's really remarkable. So tell us more about how did you navigate through all of that? Because I make it sound easy. Well, I don't think it was necessarily easy. So
no, it certainly was not easy. Here's the reality is, what choice do you have? You got, for me, it was, and trust me, I lingered on the option for ending it all very, very strongly when my police career ended. But that's a subject for later on. But the reality is, what choice do you have? When I was retired, February 28th of 1992, I was retired. Suddenly, due to line of duty injuries, I've got steel plates in my right hand. I had 3 surgeries, and I'm right-handed, and my career is over. The day I retired, my health insurance tripled. It was the third of my pension, and even with the pension being 66% of what I earned before, it wasn't enough to live off of. And we had a marriage that was failing, 2 daughters, and so really I had to work. And secondly, the other benefit was, and I didn't see at the time, but now I get to decide who I want to be when I grow up, what kind of life I want to have when I grow up. But financially, I didn't have a choice.
And I will say, and you're right, we don't need to get sidetracked on this, but I hear so many podcast guests say that, where they say they didn't have a choice. And I just like to remind you, you did.
Yeah.
And you chose life, rebuilding life, and making it happen. Like you chose the path of, I'm going to make this happen. And I'm so glad you did. What did you go into right at that time frame? So where you were like, ooh, insurance is up and this career that I loved is abruptly gone. And so what did you do next?
My first job was a part-time job selling pagers and bag cell phones. Remember those back in the day?
I did.
And I was shocked that they would allow me to run the store. I was shocked because you got to understand, I was pretty devastated.
Yeah.
And from there, I went into car sales. So I really leaned heavily in sales because, and here's what I didn't realize, police work was very sales oriented. And I say this, you deal with people all day long. Worst scenarios, worst situations, and sometimes you're selling them options. And I'll give you a good example. If a guy had too much to drink, we'll use his name Joe, for example. You say, Joe, here's your options. You can leave, go sober up a little bit, enjoy the rest of the weekend, Or I can arrest you, and if I need to, I'll call 50 fat police up here to stomp on you. So either way, it's your choice, but you decide what you want to do. And inevitably, people decided, I think I'll take the path where I get what I want.
Right. So you had built sales skills as a police officer.
I was not aware of it.
And you didn't realize it.
I didn't realize it. And I've been talking to people, and here's the thing that they told me about sales, and this really helps with radio. It really helps with all the behind-the-scenes things you see, social media, all the sales stuff. The secret of sales is listening. It's not talking. It's listening to people, what they have to tell you. They'll tell you what they need, and if you have what they need, then go ahead and service them. Otherwise, and I'll give you a good example. I sold cars for many years. The easiest sale was trucks because people knew exactly what they wanted. But if I wanted to sell a new Corvette to someone and they're looking for a minivan, the Corvette wasn't going to fit their needs. It was going nowhere. So I had to learn to listen to what their needs were. And so that skill is something that I think is carried all the way through radio, podcasting, social media, everything we talk about.
Well, the other thing that police work sets people up for to be great in sales is you mentioned you're dealing with people usually not by choice. Sometimes it is if they called for your assistance, right? And in a high-stress situation. So police officers develop remarkable skills of, as you said, listening between the lines, what's being said and unsaid. So your ability to listen is much higher than that of many other people in other professions. I've had the privilege of coaching several former police officers that became wildly successful real estate agents. And the beauty is going from police work to real estate. Real estate's also high stress.
Right.
Obviously not as high stress as when someone's pulled over or, being arrested, but it's still very high stress. So those skills they've learned there, it's a really wonderful match with real estate, and many, many very successful realtors are former police officers. So shout out there. If any of you are getting out of the police force and you're looking for a next career, reach out to me. I'd love to help you with that.
And by the way, a lot of former military veterans are phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
At the whole sales thing. And here's the thing about sales that I really loved. Police work, as much as I still love it, obviously, but you're capped at how much you can make. And you don't make more with the amount of hours you put in. If you do overtime, great. But the guy next to you does nothing, makes the same amount as you.
That's
the same amount of time on. With sales, and I'm going to use a paraphrasing here, the 3 highest paid occupations in the United States, celebrities, sports athletes, you got to have a skill set. Doctors, lawyers, professionals, all that stuff. You got to go through years of schooling. Sales is
tons
number
of money.
3. And it costs a lot, but sales is number 3. And if I can do this, you can do this. That's the thing, is it does not matter. There's no limitations placed on you when it comes to the sales game. And secondly, I'll say this, we all sell. We talk to people, we refer movies, we refer restaurants, we tell our friends, our relatives why you need to check us out, and we're not getting paid. But all of a sudden, when you ask someone for their money, it's a different scenario. That's where people get chucked out.
Yeah. And actually, you're so right. And all of us are selling from the time we're toddlers.
That's right.
Actually, we're selling from the time we're born.
That's right.
When we start crying to get fed or changed or whatever. So it's something, we actually are all natural born salespeople because it's part of survival.
It is. As we put all the other stuff on it, if we just take that other stuff out of it and say, boil down to the basics, we all do it.
So you are selling cars, and I believe you did really well with that. You were making a name for yourself with that. And the bag phones, I actually had forgotten about that part of your career path. What came after that?
About 1999. Well, first of all, I moved to Florida. I'm a West Palm Beach. I said earlier, my marriage was failing, and a woman I was dating said she's moving to Boynton Beach, Florida. I'm like, I'm going to go there. So I don't think I can get a place as any, because nothing was happening where I was at. And things really started to change for me. I met my wife. My life has really transformed. But in 1999, I got used EVR20, I think it was, microphone. And I started doing what's called audio blogs, the predecessors of podcasting. And I really enjoyed it. And I remembered that when I was a police officer in Baltimore, someone said, hey, you got a really good voice. You should be on radio. I was like, maybe I should. I fell in love with it. I did a brokered radio show for 2 years on Saturday nights for 2 hours where I sold my own advertising. That was a great introduction to it. There was a an engineer who did everything behind the scenes. I didn't have to do it. So I figured I needed to learn that. I went to a broadcasting school at nights for about 6 months and learned the rest of the industry. And the rest, to say, is history. I got in radio full time after graduating about 3 or 4 months after graduating from the night school.
I think that's remarkable. And you really tapped into a passion that was kind of dormant inside you that you didn't even realize was there.
Well, the thing you realize is, look, I'm the oldest I've ever thought I'd be. I never thought I'd be this old in my life, but I was 44 when I had a total career change going to radio, graduate from broadcasting school. And so people say, well, I can't make the change. And the question I have is, why can't you?
Right.
If you know your life is not what you want, you're not getting what you want, then do something different.
Right. And you're so glad you did.
I'm very glad I did. My bank account's glad I did. Everybody's glad I did.
Yeah. And then you just continue to develop that career. So I really think when you started with radio, I think that very naturally led into having the podcast, doing the audio blogs, all of that has led to where you are today.
Right.
But tell us a little bit more about, because for a while you were a radio personality you had parts of the show that was your personality, plus you were spinning records.
Right.
So it was music and conversation, music and personality.
Right.
So you had that kind of show for a while. When did the Law Enforcement Today radio show, when did that start?
Actually started in March of 2017. And I had an idea for a show. And part of it was, look, I love being a radio personality. It taught me a lot about, and I prefer the term DJ. I'm glad you used that one.
Sorry, DJ.
People use personalities, on-air personalities, all this stuff. Okay, whatever floats your boat. But I grew up where these people were larger than life.
Yeah.
And you lived your life by what they said. And it was a different era. But back then, they're called disc jockeys because they're spinning.
That's right. Right.
And there was no computers, and they went ahead and in between the start of a new song and the end of an else, they talked.
Yep.
So they only do about 4 hours because they were physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. But it taught me how to engage people in broadcasting. It also taught me how to have a role. Like when I'm on stage, I'm introducing Boston, or Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, or Leonard Skinner, or these other bands, ZZ Top. These are big names. It's easy when there's 30,000 people looking at you to freak out. It's very easy for me to freak out. Oh my God, I did. Well, when you have a role to do and a job to do, it makes it so much easier. And I knew my job. I knew there's things I needed to say. And I knew there's things I needed to do. And I needed to engage that audience as much as possible, not just talk to them. And that goes into the sales thing. It's all about engagement. It's all about talking to other people and getting them to lean into you. And by the way, the secret for me, one of the secrets for me building better mental health and a better life and better outlook was making it not about me, making it about other people.
Right. Right. And that allowed you to do that. So in 2017, you launched Law Enforcement Today radio show, right? The radio show was
first?
No,
the podcast first.
Oh, podcast
Here's
first.
what happened.
Okay, podcast first.
I partnered with then owner of Law Enforcement Today, Robert Greenberg. I met him for lunch on St. Patrick's Day of all days. And I was like, this is the idea of what I have. And he was a pretty big entity at the time. And he didn't have to do any work. And I said, what I want to do is present a show where people can use this as a platform to tell their stories and to let people know there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how hard what you're going through now is, and no matter what caused you to go through the difficulties you have, light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. You can build a life you want. It does great work. About a few months later, a radio station in upstate New York heard an episode of the podcast through Facebook and reached out and sent me an email. Can you create a radio version? Which we did. There's a different time clock. A bunch of other things were different. I self-syndicated 13 stations where I was sending the elements every week of the show. 2-hour show on Saturdays or Sundays or whatever day they want to run it on. And then I got my first syndicator, and the rest, they say, is history. Now I'm syndicated by Talk Media Network, and our growth has been spectacular.
It's really remarkable. And I could even share, and I should have put this in my notes because I'm going to mess it up, but you even won an award in broadcasting just in May, correct?
Yeah.
What was that award?
The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. They do Police Week. They do The Wall. They do all that stuff. I was one of the speakers of the readers of the fallen names at the Candlelight Vigil. And they have a VIP section beforehand where people come. It's about 300 people there. And all of a sudden, they had 3 awards. One was for excellence in media, which is the award I got. And I had no idea. None. Bridget, I want to tell you, I was shocked. And then I started reading my bio. I was like, wait a minute. They're talking about someone that sounds just like me. And then I'm like, holy, you know what? They're talking about me. So, and they asked me to come up and receive the award and speak a little bit. So I spoke to about 300 people. And then later on the Candlelight Vigil, there's 30,000, almost 35,000 people. Again, we were on stage and I had a job to do, but it started raining and it was a mind-blowing experience. But it really was quite the ego boost for me because, and I don't use that in a bad way, people notice what you do. Whether you realize or not, they notice what you do. And it's not what you say, it's what you do that they notice the most.
It was a reassurance to you that you're not speaking into a void, that you are actually touching people you don't know about and you'll never know about. So it's really well-deserved and a real honor.
I appreciate it. Thank you. By the way, I'm happily married, so I'm not allowed to get a big head. I've got someone at home that keeps that in check. But yeah, it's good. And the very first job I had in radio was in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. And I was doing 4 to 12s, afternoon drive at a country station. And the weather for it is wintertime, and she stayed here in Florida. I went up there. But I felt like I was in a closet like a crazy person talking to no one that was there.
Right.
And I had to realize I actually put a picture up of someone I was talking to. And that helped me tremendously. Visualize who you're talking to in the radio aspect. In face-to-face sales, you don't have to do that because you know who you're talking to. If you're over the phone or you're on a computer, you've got to go put that visualization in front of you. It helped me tremendously.
Yes. And it changes how you sound.
It does.
So it makes you sound more natural and more grounded.
Well, the other thing, too, that sound-wise that I tried to teach is one of the first lessons I learned in radio was smile when you talk and raise your chin. Because those two things will change your tone of conversation totally. And when you're smiling, when you talk, people hear you differently. You may not think you sound different, but they hear you differently. And if they see your face, then you don't see them as hostile. Me, I've always have to be aware that I am much harsher looking than I think.
I am much harsher than I sound. So I also have to smile when I'm talking.
RBF like
otherwise
crazy.
I sound like Darth Vader.
That's right.
Anyway, so the one point I want to highlight right now is, can you contrast the feeling that you were having as you received that Excellence in Media Award in May with 300 people in that intimate setting and then speaking in front of 30 to 35,000 people versus how you felt when your career ended abruptly with life-changing medical conditions in 1992?
The biggest difference was knowing my role. When my police career was over, my role was gone. It's changed tremendously. I didn't know where I fit in. And that created all kinds of problems. I tell people all the drama, the trauma, all that other stuff. I knew my job. I knew what I was supposed to do. I was pretty good at what I did. And I'm still very proud of what I did. But when things got quiet, that's when the real trouble started because I didn't have anything to fill the void. I didn't know what to do with my time. Into broadcasting, people need to understand two things, and really this helps with policing as well, but in broadcast in particular. And when you say broadcasting, it doesn't be radio, it doesn't be television, it could be YouTube, it could be whatever it's going to be. Everything about me is not for everybody. I don't feel a need to win your approval of me. And Bridget is a little bit different. Bridget is my sister. But I tell people this, I learned this lesson the hardest way possible. At the end of the month, these people that love me, that like me, the ones that think I'm the world's greatest SOB, doesn't matter because they don't pay my bills.
That's right.
What really matters is what my mother thinks of me, what my wife thinks of me, what my daughters think of me, and to some degree, what my sisters think of me. That's what really matters, because those are the people that matter the most to me. Granted, they don't pay my bills either. My wife does. It's a little bit different scenario. But I've always got to be aware of that it really doesn't matter what you think because I have no control over that. All I can do is be me and be the best version of me and broadcast that best version of me and learn as I go along because there's a lot to learn and I'm still learning.
And you'll find the people that resonate with you will find you.
Yes, they will.
And that's what's happened for you. So, and one person you left off that list is what you think of you, right? So it's those relationships, but also our self-perception is so critical,
Yes,
So
it is.
feeling like you love yourself, you are enough, and you're going to be the best you can be.
You sound like that guy, Stuart Smalley Saves the World on SNL. Remember back in the day?
That is, he didn't realize. So, yeah, SNL didn't realize they were actually, through that joke parody, which is brilliant, by the way, they actually were helping a lot of people
Yeah.
that have carried it.
Here's the reality is, and I think it's a great point, Bridget, what we think of ourselves can be very important. However, and this may sound contrary to what a lot of people believe. The less thinking I do on a daily basis, the happier I am.
The better, absolutely.
I'll revert to my wife all the time. This is an example. We're going on a long drive, and she'll ask me, "What are you thinking?" And I have to make stuff up because I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking anything. Whether you think you are a world-class POS or the best in the world, you're both probably right, and you're both probably wrong.
That's
Your
right.
actual reality is we're somewhere in the middle. I'm a big believer in the bell curve, but the less thinking I do about me on a daily basis, the better off I am. How do I put this? I'm a much better version of me than I used to be. And I wasn't a bad guy to begin with, but I'm not the guy I want to be yet. So there's still work to do. I'm still a work in progress.
Which is great. I mean, I think as people are aging, the longer you hang on to that belief that there's still room to grow and things to learn and more to do. This is just my theory, but I believe that's going to aid in longevity.
Well, it does. And here's the one thing that I'll give my age right now. At the time of this episode, I'm 67. I'll be 68 in November. I had to learn a whole new skill set. And one of the things that drives me absolutely cuckoo is when older people, and by the way, older people are the fastest growing segment of the population worldwide. Not just the United States, worldwide.
Right.
But when they say, I can't learn how, I don't know how to do tech stuff. Guess what? BS, you can learn. If I can learn, you can learn. And one of the best things that we can do is, if something is beyond your comfort zone, hire someone to do it.
That's right.
Hire someone that knows what they're doing, because you've only got so many hours in a day. You could kill yourself trying to do something that you could pay $25 or $50 for, and they could get it done in 20 minutes. And you got 3 or 4 hours invested in this, and you're nowhere near where you need to be.
Well, not only, Jay, can they get it set up for you, but they can tell you how to maintain it and use it.
Right.
Well, and that's where coaching comes in too. I mean, the amount of time that I cut off of people's learning curves and the coaching I do is remarkable.
Sure.
You have in different ways also helped people do that. You've helped me with launching the podcast. So there's no way Interstate would be where it is today if I had not had the guidance of your assistance in the beginning.
By the way, the Interstate, and you're doing the hard work. The Interstate is much, much, much more successful than most people realize. And the vast majority of people, what have you been in getting about a year now?
Not even yet. Our 1-year anniversary is July 16th.
I don't know the exact numbers in front of me, but I'd say 95% of all podcasters quit before the 7th episode. Because why? Because it's a lot of work and they don't know what they're doing. So here's one thing, I use this all the time, and I'm not going to say the name of the podcast, but it's one of the most successful podcasts in the world. And they've not produced a new episode in 6 years.
Right.
6 years. And yet they're still consistently with the #1 podcast worldwide. They're so good, they started relaunching and re-recording new episodes. Why? Because they spend more time on marketing their product than they do on their product. There are far more people in the United States than there are podcast episodes. But of all the podcasts out there, let's just say, I don't have the number in front of me. Let's say there's 2 billion podcasts worldwide. It's significantly less than that, but 2 billion podcasts worldwide. 95% of those have not produced a new podcast episode in the last 6 months.
Wow.
95% of those. So that means people like you, people like me, people that are older, this is your opportunity. If you are retired, like I am, and you look for something to do, this is a great opportunity. And you're going to learn social media skills. And by the way, I'll close on this. I'm not going to rant, but my average in Facebook alone, my average monthly insights, views of my posts, 21 million people plus view my post every month, every 30 days. And that's done from the comfort of my home in Florida. So if I can do this, why can't you?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely can. So you let something out of the bag. I hadn't mentioned yet that you were my brother. I don't know if everyone caught that, right?
Well, I'll tell you a story. Before we go to the story, let me finish this thing on Facebook. And by the way, that Facebook is all faceless. It's very rare to ever put my face on anything. So don't convince yourself you're out of the game before you even start. But Bridget, I think I was in 4th grade when I got the teacher came to me and said, by the way, you've got another baby sister. And so that's how there's a big difference between age between Bridget and I, but she's been a great addition to my life. And I've got 4 younger sisters, and let's just say they are unique. They're Irish Catholic women, and they will bust you up verbally and physically if need be.
Yes, that's true. One of the things that's interesting when I think about our life arc, so you were really into music, and you were older than me, right? So I've loved music as long as I can remember. Some of my earliest actual memories, one is a repeating part of the Led Zeppelin song, Ramble On, right? And that was one of my first favorite songs that I can recall, and I was pretty young. But
that's a good first song to like.
Yeah, I know. I think I annoyed Mom with it because I just kept doing the hook over and over.
Which, by the way, is so easy to do back in the day. As a matter of fact, I would be remiss to say it's still easy to do now.
Yes, and I think I even annoyed her with Led Zeppelin last month, so it's continued, a trend that has continued. But some viewers on YouTube have noticed that I change out my vinyl over my shoulder for every podcast episode. And part of that love of records, album covers, music, all of it really stemmed from you because you had albums, and as a young child, I was fascinated with your albums and Mom and Dad. So I think it's why I have such a broad, I go from classical to jazz to rock to whatever. But, you're a big inspiration behind the album changing over my shoulder for every episode and my massive vinyl collection that I love and actually listen to. So
when I think of Bridget, what she probably didn't tell you is she attended Old Dominion University in Norfolk. And I was already out of school at that point. By the way, I attended Old Dominion University in Virginia. And I majored in drinking and had a minor in sociology. I got a 4.0 on my major and a DNF on my minor. I was out in no time. But there is a music memory that she might remember. I went to visit this guy in high school. His sister was a student at Old Dominion. And she had Boz Scaggs' Silk Degrees playing, and I fell in love with that album.
Yes.
And I told Mom to look for it at the Navy Exchange.
Yes.
She replied, I couldn't find the album at the Navy Exchange. She totally messed up the guy's name, but she goes, it's Silk Degrees by Bob Sackett. I'm like, what? No, it's not the name. So that's not the name of the album at all. But it was such a good time. And I felt so inadequate at that time, but we used to go to music stores, and when a new album was released, let's use Led Zeppelin as an example. When a new album of theirs was released, it was always a big deal. There was crowds of people. You go to look at the artwork. There's radio stations there. You want to see and be seen. It didn't matter if you could afford it or not. You just want to go to that event because that's really what it was. Right. Now we've got people buying MP3s off of a solitary thing, and they do that from their home computer. And while it may be great for consumption-wise, they miss that whole social aspect of the music. I'm glad we had that time together. Really am.
Me too. I am too. It is funny. I feel like there were, as you mentioned, the societal part of it was lost. And even if you think back to MTV, I took my son to see Michael, and I was telling him, I said, you do not even know when there was the world premiere of the Thriller video, the whole world stopped and watched it, and stuff like that just doesn't. I just got goosebumps again. Stuff like that doesn't quite happen in the same way anymore.
People, let's go into a different, and this kind of resonated with what you said. Right now, there's a guy on YouTube called Mr. Beast. I don't know if you've heard of him. He started in the whole YouTube game when he was in his teens.
Right.
And this is old information, but the last 10 videos he released on YouTube had more views each than the Super Bowl.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So we do have it now. It's just in a different manner.
It's a different way. People still consume the same stuff, but it's
just
presented in a different way.
vehicle.
And when I was a kid, we had 3 channels on TV and we had the UHF. We didn't have, and we had radio, and that was it. And the newspaper. Yeah. So now we've got cable TV alone. We've got all these things, YouTube, we got Facebook, we got X, we got all these other things. You're bombarded with information, and it's really difficult to stand out from a crowd unless you focus on one thing. What is in it for your consumer? And lead with that all the time, and you'll be far more successful.
Well, you know what else I think we lost there was the artwork. So that whole art component, because the cover art was such a big deal. Like, right. I have a gallery wall in my living room. I've got 25 albums. I rotate out, especially seasonally. I'll put up Colonel Sanders' Christmas album at Christmas time. But, because I love the artwork. So visually, I do feel like that's a little nugget of time that just is not quite the same. And it's sort of a skill set that's gone.
It's a very, very different time. And
yeah, it's fleeting.
I'm thinking of an album that I loved, I still love, and it was Ohio Players.
Oh, yeah.
And it was with the fire, and it was so sexy at the time.
Right.
Other ones, they put so much thought. They had so many creative skills involved. It wasn't just the music they did. I'm not just talking about Ohio Players, but everybody in general.
Yeah.
They had everything thought out.
Yeah.
And a bad album cover, the artwork alone could kill your sales.
I know.
Could really kill your sales.
No, it could.
It had really nothing to do with the inner content, but it had about, again, the most important thing is getting the attention of the consumer.
It's been interesting to see the small, I think resurgence is probably too strong a word, but I'm not one of those Gen Xers that just eschews all modern music. I also listen to modern music. And it's been nice to see some of the younger artists or newer artists lean into vinyl. And they have been putting time and thought and artistic energy into what's on the cover. And that's been a real surprise. And who knows, it could just be a fluke. It may not take off, but I've appreciated that, being able to get into
I love all kinds of music, except for one style. There used to be 2, but now, back when I was younger, it was called country or western.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just country, and I've kind of leaned into it a little bit more. Most of the new music, here's my philosophy on that. It doesn't have legs. It doesn't have the strength and the longevity of the classics we grew up to. And the reason why I believe is because it's not well thought out. It's too formulaic. You got to have a chorus here, you got to have this, you got to have a certain amount of intro time.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary the other day about Led Zeppelin. And I think it was Black Dog, as we were talking about. The bassist at the time, who was probably the most gifted musician of the group, said, I want to do something that is a total departure from what everybody else is doing. So they thought about how they're going to structure music and timing, everything else, and they put a lot of thought into it. Could have been successful? Yes, it was. Could have been a failure? Absolutely. But I think a lot of times now, people just go for success, and they're like, it doesn't matter if it's only 3 months success. But it's not going to be a Led Zeppelin success. It's not going to be a Bill Withers success. It's not going to be Earth, Wind, and Fire success. It's not going to be any of that stuff that lasts for decades.
Right, yeah. That's not. It's really not. You know what's funny, Jay? I would just add, not to get all into music, but one of the things that's interesting is if you look back at some of the pop music from the late 90s and early 2000s, they were still more complex. They were still more complex musically. And people might laugh, but if you just look at Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time, if you actually listen to that, and listen to the complexities and the composition of the song, you can see why that one is having staying power and has been remade multiple times in different genres, right? It has it more so than some of the stuff out there today. But creatives, get out there. Greta Van Fleet, they're an example of which they're very inspired heavily by Led Zeppelin, but they're attempting to be a rock band, that is creating as a rock band.
It's not easy, but I'm glad they're putting thought. I'll have to check them out. Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah. So Greta Van Fleet. Yeah. Some hit or miss. I've bought all their albums.
A lot of people, Bridget, don't put time and energy in, and they don't do the grunt work behind the scenes. And it's a big part of the reason why you're successful where you're at today, because let's be totally honest. And I almost laugh when people say, oh, you're an overnight success. No, you're kidding. I've been at this for 20 years.
Right.
There's been a lot of work. Yeah. I ate McDonald's when it was on special, and I had ramen noodles because we couldn't afford to eat regular food.
Right.
So, yeah, there's no overnight success, but if you don't put in the grunt work, you're never going to get there. There's a few people. Let's look at this concept going viral on social media. There's someone who goes viral one time. That's awesome, but they got nothing after that. Give me the people that do 30 or 40 pieces a month that do a tenth of the traffic, and they'll be far more successful because they've got earning capability. And this is what I try to get through to a lot of people, especially older people. You got this life experience. You know how to talk to an audience. You know what to do. Just get started. You're not going to figure it out until you get started. You're not going to learn what you're good at, what you're not good at until you do that. And you might shock yourself. You're much better at things than you realized.
And you may enjoy it more than you think you might. Right. So I agree. Well, Jay, I just think you're a great living example of life's going to throw major shockwaves at you.
Yes.
Nearly all of us are going to suffer either career disappointment or personal life disappointment, and as you said, you reflect on the options and you pick the one where you're moving ahead. Just make it happen. And if you're eating off the dollar menu and then having ramen, you're doing that and you're doing whatever it takes to rebuild. I want to agree with you too. You mentioned earlier, it's not ever too late. I mean, you restarted this now very robust, award-winning career in radio, podcasting, and media when you were 44. So now you've got a couple decades in that. However, you launched the Law Enforcement Today radio show podcast in 2017. Right. You weren't 44 then, right? No. So you did that when you were, late 50s? Yeah. So time's going by anyway.
Well, we're going to get older. And by the way,
so
this is the first time in probably almost 3 weeks that I've had a lower back injury. And this is a gift from my police career. I'm able to sit for a long period of time. But one thing I remember, and I can't say who said it, but growing older is a privilege denied to many people. And there's a lot of great people that did phenomenal things that they died before they had a chance to accomplish that stuff. So the reality is when good stuff happens, get busy. When bad stuff happens, get busy. When nothing's happening, get busy and stay busy. Otherwise, what are your options? If I'm not busy doing something, then what am I doing? Right. I'm backtracking and I'm getting busy dying. That's really the reality of what it is.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for being our guest today, Jay. I could talk to you for hours, but I just want to thank you for sharing that things that seemed like the end of the road were really just a detour to something that has either taught you things along the way that you reap the rewards of later or allowed you to grow and develop into the media presence that you are. You do have a voice for radio.
Figured it match. One thing, I want to shift gears before we leave. I'm not where I want to be as a person. I'm not where I want to be in media-wise. There's still a whole lot more growth. But the question is, where do you see yourself 1 year from now with the interstate?
I would like to be in the top 0.5%, according to Listen Notes, which is that third-party provider that ranks podcasts globally. Currently, I'm in the 1%, and we've been staying there for a couple of months. So I'm excited about that. Similar to what you were saying, that lets me know that someone somewhere is hearing it, even if they're not putting a comment on YouTube or a comment on Apple, that people are there. And I really would like to have at least 200 people featured and 200 episodes out there. We crossed over 100 episodes last month, so I was very excited about that. And I'm actually thinking about putting together a book with some of my most inspiring guests and getting a book out before July of 2027. So that's one other thing, I'm taking it on the road. I'm going to do some in-person podcast recordings across the country. So if you're out there and you live someplace awesome where I should bring my RV and you want to do an in-person guest spot, I'm going to look to do that too.
I think that's great. And everybody has a story to tell. Just remember that. Everybody has a story to tell. And for every story to tell, there's at least 10 people that want to hear what you've got to say.
Right. Yes.
So let's break it down to this. And there's only so many people I can talk to a day. And I've got to repeat the time, the effort, the energy. With a podcast, for example, I can do an episode, do the work, put it up there, and touch 300 people that I could never talk to, period. Right now, the highest episode I have in the last 2 years has 17,000 downloads. And I did the work one time on that.
Right.
So altogether it was about 2-3 hours worth of work. But 17,000 people have benefited from that, and I've benefited from it. So here's the thing about working in radio. I love working in radio. I used to really be trapped in the mindset of I need to be in a big market. Doesn't matter when you're in a big market or small market. When you are done, you're an employee for that radio station. When you are done, you stop earning money from them. You earn $0. When you do a podcast, I still have people listening to stuff I did in 2017 that earns me revenue. And I've not done any more work on it. So your choice, it's totally up to you.
Well, a quick shout out. If you are involved in law enforcement, active, retired, or in a supporting role, and you're interested in being a guest on Jay's show, we'll have contact information. People can reach out. If you want to be on Law Enforcement Today, please check that out. Subscribe it. It's amazing.
By the way, it's called Law Enforcement Talk now. We separated it about 2 years ago.
That's right. Law Enforcement Talk radio show.
Right.
So that link will be in the description wherever you're consuming this podcast.
And about 70% of all my guests, they talk about trauma they've been through. And often crime-based, but not always.
Right.
How it impacted them and what they did to rebuild their lives afterwards. So that opens it up to a whole nother segment. If you're never police, we got people. I sent a guy your way that he was a soccer coach.
Yep.
And he had a life-changing incident, and he found a way to develop some resilience and build a life he wants. That's the kind of stories I really want to hear.
Right. Yeah, it's about rebuilding, choosing to move forward, making things happen when it feels like there's no opportunity, and still making it happen and living a life that you're excited about. So it's really remarkable. And if you think that you would like to be a guest on the Interstate, also you can reach out to me. Jay, thank you so much for being our guest.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful. And I hope that you're actually someone who'll be a repeat guest.
Bring it on. Let's
Maybe
do
we can
this.
get together. We can do a whole music episode.
I'll change my backgrounds.
Okay, sounds good.
By the way, very quick, what was the best concert you ever been to?
Wow. When I went to Desert Trip in 2016, which that is 3 nights of concerts, but it was incredible. I was there the first weekend. I was in the standing pit, and I always got there early, so I was right up at the front for all the shows. And it was Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, The Who, Roger Waters, and Neil Young. Best weekend of my life.
Awesome. The best concert we ever been to was Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C. It was about 300
They're
people, and they played every song we knew. We danced the entire time. They had 2 new songs we didn't know. It was great.
I've seen them twice, and it's amazing every time. All right. If you're listening to this episode of The Interstate, I hope you'll join us for the next one.
The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or 2 or 3. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.